join us this morning to get into the conversation and examine the legal and constitutional issues is Olatunde Olayinka Damilola. He's a constitutional lawyer. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Damilola. Esquire now, as
Good
you guys would
morning.
say. Yeah.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Let's get right into the conversation. We'll begin with the 10 billion naira lawsuit itself. From a constitutional perspective and from the angle of the law, what are the key legal issues that this case raises, particularly surrounding the person of Nasir El-Rufai, his continued detention, and his family's alleged inability to, have access to him? What does the law say as regards to this? First of all, he's been detained for days and then be denied access. And then he now filing for a 10 billion naira suit against the ICPC, depriving his family from reaching out to him or getting access to him, how you might put it. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
All right, you can go ahead.
All right, thank you. Well, my opinion on the El-Rufai suit it's just that it is something that is necessary. It's a necessary step is taken because when a person is in detention, that does not mean that they do not have the fundamental human rights that are to be respected. As a matter of fact, while in detention, they retain their right to dignity of human persons. That is, they should be treated like every other average human would be treated. And looking at Nasir El-Rufai's case, it's a criminal trial that is still going on, that is still active in court, and he has not been found guilty yet. So, as a matter of fact, he is still presumed to be innocent until the court convict him. So, he's entitled, notwithstanding the detention, of the right to be treated like every other human being will be treated. And he also has the right to, access his legal practitioner, to be given access to his legal practitioner, to be given access to his family. And this is a right that extends not just to El-Rufai, but every person that is in detention or in lawful custody of a law enforcement agent.
Mr. Damilola, can you hear me? Can you still hear me? Are you
So
still
he
there?
has a right to his family. Yeah, I'm still there. I'm still there.
All right, go ahead.
So so he has a right for access to his family. He has a right to be visited. He has a right to get medical attention. And when we look at one of the grounds of the fundamental human rights suit that was filed on 13th of August, he's complaining of the fact that his families have not been given access to see him, which is an infringement of his right to family life under Section 37. So he ought to be given access to see his family. Then he has also mentioned the fact that he has been deprived access to medical attention. So every person who is in a lawful custody still retains their right to be treated as humans. It doesn't make them less humans. And as a matter of fact, they are not criminals yet. So they cannot even be treated as one because they are presumed innocent. So I would say that the step taken by Nasir El-Rufai's legal team is actually a step in the right direction
he is
to
within his
enforce
right. So
his human right.
he's within his right to file for this lawsuit because he's been deprived access and by family now to him. Mr. Damilola, if you can't hear me, we'll try to reconnect with you briefly. We're looking at the detention and the prolonged detention of Nasir El-Rufai and the lawsuit. So I was saying that he's well within his right to file this lawsuit against the agency.
Yes. He's well within his right to enforce his fundamental human rights. Section 46 of the Constitution provides that any time a person feels his right has been, infringed by a private individual, a public institution, or anybody at all, they have the right to approach the Federal High Court or the State High Court for the enforcement of their fundamental human right. So I believe he's within his right to, approach the court for the enforcement of his right against ICPC.
But in this case, it's kind of feel like the Nasir El-Rufai is, because he's a former governor and has been in politics, it kind of feels like an important case, right? At what point do you deprive the individual from access from other, maybe like family members, just his lawyer alone? At what point do we get there? Because it seems to be like it's been denied access from anyone. At what point do we get to that?
I do not think there is any point that the Constitution allows for a person in detention to be denied access to their families or access to their medical practitioners or anybody willing to see them. The truth is, it is just a sad trend that has begun in Nigeria for a while, of which Nasir El-Rufai himself cannot act innocent now, and that is why, when you check the court of public opinion, people seem quite indifferent about El-Rufai's plight, because in I think about 2017 there was a particular case of I think a journalist Biniat or thereabout during El-Rufai's time that was in detention for 3 months and denied access to a family, denied access to people coming to see the journalist, and at the end of the day, the journalist was granted stringent bail conditions. And this is not the only person that it happened to, but it is just an unfortunate trend that has come to I would say unfortunately come to stay in Nigeria, that you have persons who are probably considered as political threats being targeted with criminal trials, and then they get locked up for a long time just to ensure that they are decapitated politically by those persons who consider them a threat. Because as a matter of fact, this is the same thing that happened with Showore in I think in 2019, where he was in detention for over 144 days. And despite being granted bail and all of that, he was not able to perfect the bail. Just like El-Rufai's case now, you can see that when the court granted him bail, it was given a stringent condition. And then the court was asking him to get a grade 17 civil servant that has a house in Maitama and Asokoro. Can a grade 17 civil servant have 4 houses there? Those are stringent bail conditions that cannot be met. But unfortunately, it is not what the law really says. It is not what the law really provides for. But in this situation, it is something that happens. By normal standard or from the legal standpoint, every person, regardless of whatever crime they are being alleged of, has the right and the constitutional enablement to be granted access to their family members, to be granted access to those persons who wish to visit them, and to be granted access to their legal practitioners. Although I know sometimes exceptions can be made in some certain situations where those persons are considered maybe a national security threat. But in El-Rufai's circumstance, I do not think that is the case. I believe that this is just, the usual trend of political witch hunt, and it is unfortunate to see. But legally, there is no point in time where a person in detention should ever be denied access to their family, access to medical attention, or access to their legal practitioner.
All right, let's come back to the issue that even brought us here in the first place, having El-Rufai being detained. And some to say, if we go by the court of public opinion, which you cited earlier, to say, why is he still in detention? He's not been found guilty. The trial is on. There have been some courts who is met with their bail conditions before, and now they're just different matters in different courts. Why do we still have El-Rufai in custody if he's yet to be found guilty? For the ordinary man to understand why he's still in custody, can you just help us understand that quickly?
Well, I believe that in the suit filed by the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the criminal suit where he's being tried, I believe that Nasir El-Rufai applied for bail and bail was granted. However, the bail conditions were conditions that could not have been met, or should I say it is impossible to meet, because the court was demanding that he gets a grade 17 civil servant that will stand shorty and will be able to offer their land papers as one of the documents that will be, submitted in perfection of the bill, and that those properties have to be in Maitama and Asokoro. Now, the court has granted bail because he's entitled to bail. But the unfortunate aspect of it, and I believe the NBA even criticized this last year, that courts should ensure that if you're granting bail, the essence of bail is from the standpoint that this person has not been found guilty. He's still innocent. He should still be allowed to, live his normal life. Because at the end of the day, the court should not close its eyes to the possibility that this person could be innocent. Right. And those times when he's in detention would have been wasted. So in Nasir El-Rufai's case, I believe what has happened so far and why he's still in detention is because he has not been able to perfect his bail. But notwithstanding, the court actually held that he should be given access to his family and that his family should be allowed to visit him, his medical practitioners should be allowed to visit him. So I believe the ICPC are actually outstepping the bounds of the law, outstepping the bounds of what they are even allowed to do. So that is what I I can brief the members of the public opinion on what is happening.
Would you say that these bail conditions that are so almost impossible to meet, it's because they needed to keep him and not release him to his freedom now, because he's not found guilty yet. Investigation is still ongoing. The trial is ongoing. So this, bail condition, do you think it's just a way to keep him in custody?
I do not think I would like to comment on that because it is a decision of the court. And if I do that, I may be in contempt. But from I think from a standpoint of things, or let me say, if I look at it from the social side of things, it is impossible to meet. And if something is impossible to meet, then it is just easy to conclude and read in between the lines, what is happening. But then I don't think it's something I would like to comment on because it is a decision of the court.
So what does the law say? If you can't meet with the bail condition, you remain in custody, you remain detained until you can meet with while the investigation is going on to clear whether you're guilty or not.
Yes, actually, it's not an investigation. A trial is going on. It's in court already.
Right.
Yeah, it's in court already. And once bail has been granted, it is left for the defendant to meet up with the condition. As long as the defendant is unable to meet up with the condition, then he remains in custody. That is the principle of law.
So what is possible here? Where do we go from here? The public deserves to understand what's going on. The case before him, he was governor before and he tried to be minister at some point, but wasn't cleared access and all. The transparency of this case, do you think the agencies are transparent enough for Nigerians to understand what is still ongoing with this case?
Well, I would not really say the agency are not transparent enough. I just believe that we can only wait and see how the trial pans out. Because on the side of his detention, it is unfortunate that the bail conditions are stringent. And as a matter of fact, his legal team, because once the bail condition is granted and is stringent, your legal practitioner or your counsel can apply to court for a variation of the bail conditions to something lesser or something that can, be met up with or complied with. But then when his legal counsel went back to court, his legal team went back to court and they applied for variation, the court insisted on the stringent term that has been issued. And in that particular circumstance, there's nothing that can be done. But I would just say that, just like every other Nigerian, I am interested in seeing how the matter pans out and see where it ends. But as of now, there's little we can really, say concerning how ICPC is handling the matter, or whether ICPC really has what is sufficient to convict El-Rufai on this matter, and whether this is just one of those criminal suits that will just extend to 2027, and once the election is over, we just find out that okay, the matter has been maybe resolved, and then El-Rufai is out. So it is an interesting watch for all of us. We just have to wait.
Thank you so much for mentioning 2027, because that seems to be on the front burner, in a lot of conversations at this point. I mean, this is a former governor, a former minister, and a major member of the opposition party. Now, you saw all of the issues, pre-trial, before, we had that particular judgment, to give him bail. And this disputes over visitation and access to his family. How do you imagine that this affects public confidence on the impartiality of anti-corruption agencies, in this case, the ICPC, ahead of 2027?
Right from time, I do not believe that the ICPC, regardless of being called an independent, body, I do not believe they are really independent, in my opinion. As long as a body is established and the president is participating or in charge of the appointment of persons that occupy the leadership roles in these organizations, there is no way they will not at some point be politically colored to do the biddings of the persons that has appointed them. You can never try to outshine your master. That is just the truth. So overall, when we look at the trends of what has been happening with both the DSS, the Nigerian Police Force, the ICPC, the EFCC, in relation to persons who are politically exposed, we cannot but doubt the independence of these agencies, because you just found out that at very crucial times like this, getting closer to election periods, they're always out there trying to, witch hunt or pay back, or trying to just ensure that the biddings of those persons whom they answer to, have been satisfied. By the way, this is just what my opinion is, and I believe this is what the general opinion of individuals are. So I do not believe in the independence of ICPC going to 2027 election. I think this might not just be the end to it, because I remember about last week or some couple of weeks ago, I was on this show and we were talking about Senator Fadaunsi's issue, where he made a comment that persons that are in the Accord Party that
Mr. Damilola.
If you find them, you kill them. Till now, he's caught him as well, doing almost nothing and not been done to him. So it just shows that
we lost your audio we lost your audio for a split second. Could you reiterate what you were saying about Senator Fadaunsi?
Yes, I was saying that till now, Senator Fadaunsi has not been tried to court, because he's a member of the ruling party. Obviously, he has not been charged to court. No step has been taken, and this actually brings us to the point of doubting, the independence of the law enforcement agencies as we have in Nigeria. So I would say that it is, from the standpoint of things and how they have been acting over time, it is difficult to trust in their independence. That is what I would say.
But there is the argument that some of these restrictions may be necessary, maybe even temporary, as it were. But where do we draw the line? How significant is it to, draw that distinction between when an anti-corruption agency has to take a necessary or temporary restriction measure, and then violating the rights of an individual as captured in sections 34 and 37 of the Constitution?
I don't quite get your question in terms of temporary restriction. Maybe if you can broaden that a bit.
Yeah, they may argue that it is necessary to deny him access. I wouldn't know the reason. They've not come out with a public statement yet on why they've not granted him access to his family. But whatever the reason may be, can you juxtapose that with what his rights say in the Constitution?
The Constitution never gave them the right to, deprive him access to his family. I understand that there are certain exceptions in the Constitution on when fundamental human rights may be deviated from, on the ground of public security, public law and morality and all of those things. But then in this particular situation, El-Rufai has not been granted bail. Okay, he's not a free man. He's within ICPC custody. And I believe the facility of the ICPC is very protected. I believe they have armed officers all around. I believe there are going to be video cameras. There are going to be protocols to actually vet visitors before coming in. I don't think there is any justification the ICPC can give for the denial of his family to getting access to him, because I do not see them constituting a threat to national security there. If they are coming in, their protocols, they will definitely follow, unless they do not trust themselves. So I don't think there's any justifiable reason that can be given for the restriction of El-Rufai, because aside from being a politician, he's a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and he's also a human. So I don't think there is any excuse ICPC can come up with to justify that.
So, but in view of this suit that he has now filed against the ICPC, do you think they are going to finally allow him access to his family?
Well, that will be for the court to decide. We never can tell. I can only just hope that justice prevail. Although from my own standpoint, I am really open.
Mr. Damilola,
the law takes its course.
Yeah, absolutely.
That the court would grant. Sure that he granted access to his family. So we're really hoping that the court would grant his application.
All right. Thank you very much for your time on the program, Mr. Damilola. We do hope to talk to you again. Enjoy the rest of your week. I guess the connection is a bit maybe it's also been restricted or been detained. Those detaining the network, please, can you release it now to have access to us too? I guess that's how much we can take on the program this morning.